BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it is Jane Austen July month, so I thought I would update you on how that's going. Now, it's only been a week, so I don't have a lot to update, but I am going to talk about some of the retellings that I've read that are Jane Austen related, and basically they're all Pride and Prejudice retellings, because Pride and Prejudice is such a popular one to retell. I mean, they are the beginnings of the whole hate to love trope with Elizabeth and Darcy. Which I get, so as much as I love Pride and Prejudice. I do, like everybody else. It's not my all-time favorite Jane Austen novel, but I still love it. I love the trope of the hate to love as much as most people do. But it's very, like, it's kind of frustrating that feels like that's the one that is adapted, that is retold constantly. There are so many on Goodreads, so many retellings or variations of Pride and Prejudice and how Elizabeth and Darcy meet and fall in love, or what happens next with those characters. And yeah, I like the idea of those, and I do like the ones that explore other characters in Pride and Prejudice. But I would like to see other stories, read her other novels, retold. I know there's Return to Mansfield, which I think is about Fanny's sister living at Mansfield Park and her story. There is the Jane Fairfax, which is a novel about Jane and her perspective on the events in Emma. Which means they also get to explore more of her relationship with what is his name? Churchill. Frank Churchill. They get to explore, which I want to read that one at some point, because I feel like we don't, that relationship is such an interesting one, especially with the way Churchill treats Jane and how he basically flirts with Emma. And there's so much behind the scenes drama that would be going on, I feel like, with them. So we only get secondhand information. We're just told that these things happen, but we don't see it played out in live action, so I really want to read that at some point. But I will talk more about those retellings and the ones I have read. But so right now, as of my update on how my Jane Austen reading is going, I have read the first 6 chapters of Persuasion. And this one has just kind of grown on me over the years. The first time I read it, I wasn't that crazy about it. I thought it was okay. It wasn't bad. But it was still, so far, I think I've read almost all of them, and none of them have been bad at all. They're all, which I'm sure a lot of Jane Austen fans would agree. But there are obviously, probably some Jane Austen fans I would think have favorites over all the others, and probably have ones that are just they would rank as just okay, satisfying enough. And for a while that was this one. Now it's kind of become Northanger Abbey. But in case you don't know, in this one, it's kind of a second chance romance where, our main character, Anne, she was all set to marry the sailor, Wentworth, and her godmother kind of talked, and her godmother and father kind of talked her out of it, because it was he had no prospects, he wasn't good enough for Anne. And Anne, being very susceptible to her godmother's opinion, was decided that they were right and essentially dumped him. And then, but also over time, she still has not let go of her love for him, and no one can compare to him. And conveniently, when her father has to let some rent out their home, he ends up coming back into her life because he has, I don't know if they're relatives of his or friends, maybe related, the in-laws of his sister or something. They decide to rent out their family's home. And so she ends up crossing paths with him, and has to maybe deal with that. And you see if they will get a second chance or not with each other. And it's just Anne is such a very different a very different character. Both her and Fanny Price are very different, very shy, more reserved characters. And I think a lot of adaptations very much struggle with that. And I think that's why a lot of people have problems with adaptations of these books. I mean, of course, this is the one where it had the worst adaptation that just came out a couple years ago with the actress from 50 Shades Grey and Madame Web. She played Anne. And when I first heard that, I was thinking, oh, she'd be perfect. She does a really good job playing that kind of character. So I thought, oh, that would be perfect for her to play Anne. But apparently, it didn't turn out so well. I didn't watch it, though, because a lot of people's opinions kind of scared me away from it. Made me a little apprehensive to watch it. But yeah, and then a lot of adaptations for Mansell Park have the same problem where they just cannot get it right for fans. And it sounds like that's to do with, again, the main character is very reserved, very quiet, have a strong moral character, which is funny because adaptations of Jane Eyre have been good. They've done well. People have done well with adapting that, and Jane Eyre is a lot like these two characters, Anne and Fanny. But anyway, this is like my fourth or fifth time reading this because it's just the novel has got to me a little. I'm starting to like it. Oh, I've started to like it over time and really appreciate that. And I think it has to do with a lot of people's on BookTube and how they talk about it. Even if this isn't their favorite, it's still the way they talk about it still does inspire me to continuously reread this book and look at it in different ways and really see things and see the appeal of it and see maybe realize that I like it a lot more than I realized. And I do relate to both Anne and Fanny in a lot of ways. I feel like I'm also a very shy, reserved person. The good news is I don't have the kind of sisters or cousins that these heroines have. Thankfully, I have a great relationship with my sister. We respect each other. We love each other. We don't take each other's advantage of each other. But oh my god, like I said, I read the first 6 chapters and we already learn about the sisters, and just like, you have one sister, Elizabeth, who just dismisses Anne, doesn't take her, doesn't care about her, and is like, oh, she can just go away. She's not of importance. She won't be of any use. And then you have her other sister, Mary. She's like, I need you to take care of me and take care of my kids because I'm too lazy to do it myself. And I need you. Like, hypochondriac. When I was reading, I was trying to think of a word for someone who thinks that they are like constantly ill, and even when they're not, like it's just it really is all in their head. Like, that's what I think of when I think of Mary, her sister, that she's such a hypochondriac. She just thinks she's always ill and she can't take care of herself, so she is very dependent on Anne. She's a very codependent relationship with Anne and just doesn't appreciate all that her sister puts up and how kind Anne is to her and how, and it's just, I cannot stand her sisters. Like, at least Lady Russell cares about Anne. Like, yeah, she kind of interferes with her life and constantly forms an opinion and has too much influence on Anne, but at least it comes from a place of affection and love, motherly love, and that she actually cares about Anne and that Anne has a good life. It's not just, Anne's unimportant, or I need Anne to take care of me because I'm too lazy to do it myself. But anyway, so that's where I am with Persuasion. The other day, I just finished reading Heartstone. I meant to read this last year, but I did not get around to it. This was really fun. I enjoyed this. I mean, I did give it only 3 stars, because it was just like, oh, it was kind of cool. It's not the best book ever, but I still had a good time with it. I would love to see this adapted, like as a Netflix film or a Amazon film or something. I think that would be really fun. Although people probably that love this book would not trust Netflix with it. Although it's a film, so it's not like a TV show where I think with TV adaptations, they get turned into TV shows that are TV shows. I think people are more nervous about that than adaptations that are movies. I could be wrong though with that, but movies aren't over a series of years unless it's a movie series. Although they were Damsel, people were pretty upset about Damsel, I think. They were pretty unsatisfied with that one too. Anyway, so this is Pride and Prejudice retelling where the characters, or at least the richer upper class characters, are dragon riders. So there's dragons, there's hobgoblins, there's griffins, there's trolls, there are all sorts of magical creatures. And the daughter, the Elizabeth and her sisters kind of want to be think dragons are really cool. They want to be warriors, but their mom is, of course, wants them to be, find husbands and everything. And what's really, I feel like it does kind of take some of those characters and has their original traits and stuff that make us feel the way we feel about them, but it kind of makes them a little more likable. I think a lot of these retellings I've read have done that, made the original characters that are unlikable, a little more appealing or a little more forgivable in their actions. Not that, although granted, you can kind of understand where Elizabeth's mother is coming from in the original novel, if you really think about it. While Mr. Collins has no excuse. He's just a pompous, arrogant idiot and ass. But he's made to be a little more likable, or at least, a little more tolerable. I mean, now this one doesn't do it as much because this one, of course, focuses on the Elizabeth and Darcy characters. But I love the idea of taking these historical fictions and adding a fantasy spin to them. That, I always love those kinds of retellings. It's just always so fun to see how they would deal with a fantastical element. How could you tweak things to where they could fit in a world where there's fantasy creatures and people having magical powers. I even did, and it's in my head, it will never be written down, but as someone who used to write fan fiction, I didn't do it for long, obviously, but I do still kind of come up with fan fictions in my head, and I did think of a fan fiction where in the world of Bridgerton, they have magic, and the characters have magical power, and I always try to think, okay, what type of powers would fit all the characters? And there's only 2 of them at the moment that I really have an idea of what powers. Well, 3 of them possibly. But it doesn't matter because it's never going to be written down. It's never going to see the light of day. It's never going to go on the internet because that would be, I've tried to get back into fan fiction. It just doesn't work. I just can't do it. Anyway. So, yeah, this was really a really fun retelling. It had all the romanticism of the original novel. It had a lot of humor in this. It was, and they stayed true to the characters. It still had a lot of the same themes of classism and, Pride and Prejudice and all that. It was really good. It was really cool. I really enjoyed the elements. The writing was good, Anyway, so those are the 2. So, though, that's what I'm currently reading. I don't know what I'll read next out of the ones I've talked about, but now I'm going to just talk about the retellings I've read so far. Now, first, I've read Longbourn. I got that from the library, so don't have to show you. I don't have it to show you. But this was Pride and Prejudice from the servant's perspective, which I think was such an intriguing idea, because you see, it really puts the characters in a very different light, and I've said this before in another video where I talked about what I want to see in retellings, not just Jane Austen's novels, but other retellings of other stories, that I like when, I really like the ones that really take characters that are in the background or overshadowed by the main characters of the original novel, or, characters that, you don't hear about, but that they would probably be there, in other words, the servants of their household, because they still are wealthy enough to have at least a couple servants, and seeing their perspective on the situation, how they would react, and it would kind of change the perspective of the main characters of the original novel. It wouldn't change them, but I mean how you view them. So we have in Longbourn, we're seeing things through the eyes of the servants, and how they have to deal with these their characters, and how all the antics of these characters and having to take care of them, make sure, do chores, take care of their household. And like, you have Elizabeth who's always running around getting her skirts dirty, not worrying about that. And so you have a servant who has to clean her clothes and her shoes. Or you have servants who, like, they may in their head have opinions on these people, but they of course can't express them because they might get fired, and they have to deal with the mess and all the after, and have to make sure everything's, and it's just, I imagine would be a lot of stress for these people who work for them and have to take care of them. And sometimes, you see these stories where these rich people just take their servants for granted and just don't consider, I was even thinking about this, again, I'm bringing up Bridgerton, the show. I was just thinking, some of the stuff that those characters, like, going and making the servants wait outside for them while they visit each other, or like, situation, or like the really intimate moments between the couple, and so the servants have to stand there and not say anything and hear them having fun. Like, it must be really either really amusing or really uncomfortable having to deal with that. So it's very, I think the idea of Longbourn was such a fascinating idea of just, what would these people think? What are their thoughts? And we do get a romance with the main character in Longbourn. She gets her own kind of Pride and Prejudice-esque love story in that one, which was really sweet and really cute. And they try to do it a different, not be a carbon copy of Pride and Prejudice with the plot, but just do but have the familiarity and similar traits of that plot, like a love triangle, for instance, and how they would handle that situation, because they're not privileged the way the Bennets are, and the way Darcy is. So they might handle it a little differently, their situation. It might not be as lucky in their love stories. But it was really good. It was very sweet. Like I said, I got it from the library, so I don't have it. I also, I've already talked about Hearthstone. I also have I just read Charlotte. I think I read it in February. By Helen Moffat. This was one that Katie from Books and Things recommended on her channel. And this is about, as the title says, Charlotte. The character, she is Elizabeth's best friend, and she marries Mr. Collins because she doesn't have a lot of options. So we see her perspective and how hard it was for her, and how, Elizabeth was very judgmental of her choosing to marry Collins. And in the original novel, she does get to defend herself, but we really get to explore her marriage to Collins and what it's like, and how it's not as bad as you would think. And she does they do grow to be very fond of each other, really care about each other. They have a child. They have a very content situation, and they're happy with each other. So, and there's another one I'm going to talk about that also kind of looks at Mr. Collins in a very much more positive light, and shows that he's not that bad of a guy. He's just, a little arrogant. And Charlotte does get a taste of what she could have had. She does cross paths with this other gentleman and has her own little romantic fling. And she has to decide, is she going to betray her husband and have an affair, or, is she going to give up this chance at romance and be happy with what she has? It also deals with losing a child, and how hard that is and how difficult that is, and that can tear apart a family, a couple, or bring them back together. So it really deals a lot with that in this book. It's just a very bittersweet, but heartwarming at the same time kind of story, because of what happened in the story. And I like that, again, this one deals with a character that is kind of overshadowed by Elizabeth and Darcy's whirlwind romance, and Elizabeth's very strong personality, and how she is very fortunate to get the attentions and find love with the wealthy guy, and while Charlotte is not as fortunate. So it kind of looks at Elizabeth in this way of, okay, we like you, Elizabeth, and we're rooting for you, but, we feel like you're really hard in not understanding the struggles of your friend. But although in the original novel she does begin to be a little, in the original novel and in this one, she does come around and is more understanding, less judgmental, and is actually kinder, isn't as, and is a little bit kinder to Mr. Collins and gives him a chance to understand that he can make a friend happy. That's the other one I've read. And then we have, again, another fantasy retelling. That is Tooth and Claw. This one by Joe Walton. This was one that Jean from Jean's Bookish Thoughts recommended on her channel once. This is a really cute retelling. I mean, these all are great. At least the ones I've read. There's still a lot that I probably would love to read. And like I said, I want to read ones that have nothing to do with Pride and Prejudice. I want to read some other stories on different Jane Austen novels. So this one, instead of them being dragon riders, they are dragons. Which, even as much as I love fantasy is my go-to genre, whether it's a movie, TV show, or a book. I'm all about the fantasy, but it was weird at first when I started reading it, because I kept picturing the characters as humans. Like, well, actually, they're dragons. They're not humans. They're physically dragons. Which I think is an even more unique spin, because you're dealing with animals and telling the story of them and giving them human qualities, but they're still physically humans, and seeing how they would deal with this, like their approach to the situation, and how you can use human, use animal things that animals would like as a way to, make them, I'm having trouble explaining this, like the way an animal would express affection, basically. Like, so I think it was a really fun take, a really fun spin on the story, and I definitely, if you like I said, this is another one that, I still like this better than Hearthstone. Hearthstone, I still loved it. It was great, but I think I like this a little bit more. I think this was very charming, and just a really unique retelling of Pride and Prejudice. Although, and I haven't read anything else by this author, but I would be curious. So now, unless my all-time favorite one that I just went totally gaga over, and now I can see why people complain about this one being too long. Because if you look at Pride and Prejudice, it's not that long. This one is super long, and that is the other Bennett sister. Oh my god, I related to her the most. Like, I always say, there's always that character that I probably am the most like, and then there's the one that I would like, that maybe when, that I would like to ideally be like. And like I said, now I don't mean as in, oh, I hate that I'm like this other character. I do not mean it like that. I mean it as in, like you have your fantasy version of yourself, and then you have your more realistic version of yourself. That isn't bad. It's just like, it's hard to explain, because I don't want to sound like I'm saying that characters like, I don't like characters like this, because I love characters like, I love that I can see myself in Mary Bennett. That's what this is. This is about Mary Bennett. So just like with Charlotte, you have Mary Bennett, who got very overshadowed, not just by Elizabeth, but by Kitty, by Lydia, by Jane, because she's the plain one. She's the one who's more of the bookworm. She's the one who's more quiet and shy and doesn't get like a lot of attention, and people are like, oh, I wish you were prettier. And like, she is just very shy, very awkward, just can't fit in with her family. And I love that we get her story, we get her perspective on the events of Pride and Prejudice, but we also get her love story. And again, just like with Charlotte, we have characters like Mr. Collins who are very much explored a lot more in this book. Not just Collins, but also we get more of Charlotte. We get more of the Gardners, the cousin, the the aunt and uncle, and we also see a little bit more of even characters that were in the original book that did get a lot of page time, but we explore other sides of them. Like Miss Bennett, because she very much hyper focuses on Mary and how, like, oh, I wish she was more pretty so she could get more attention, and being frustrated because there's at one point Mary realizes that she needs glasses, and the mom is like, Miss Bennet's like, oh no, that's gonna make her unattractive. Which you see that all the time in movies and books, where all of a sudden a character has glasses, and that suddenly makes them unattractive. And like, you have the makeover where all of a sudden they get their glasses removed, and all of a sudden they're so much prettier. It's like, really? You think that glasses make you unattractive? It's like, no, I totally have to disagree. Like, my friends that wear glasses, I think they're pretty. I don't think that them wearing glasses is what makes them unattractive. I think that's, and it kind of annoyed me, but I really appreciate that this one had Mary need the glasses, and it wasn't like they didn't sacrifice the glasses. Like, she tried to, but then she realized, no, I need them for practical reasons, and it didn't take away her beauty. Because I think she is beautiful. I think she would be beautiful. He's a beautiful person. And her romance, oh my god. Her romance in this story is so sweet and just so romantic. And like, Jane Austen's novels, we do get to explore other parts of England. And, I also, again, she's a bookworm. We do have different taste in books. But I do love that she reads just like me. And I connected with her so much, and her romance, like I said, was very heartwarming. It did have there was a bit of a love triangle. Now, the other guy in the love triangle was more likable than Wickham. Like, he was a little bit more genuine than Wickham, I feel like. But it's just in the descriptions, and yeah, it's a little slow in the beginning. Like, I get that people's criticism of it, not thinking it's too long and it's slow in the beginning, in the middle, not at the beginning, in the middle. But I feel like she is so relatable, and I just enjoy this. I want to reread it. I haven't gotten around to it, but I do want to reread it at some point. But yeah, I just love this. This was amazing. So those are the only retellings of Jane Austen novels that I've read. And all of them are Pride and Prejudice retellings. I want to see more. Like, there's so many going on Goodreads a while back. I noticed that there were so many variations and retellings of Pride and Prejudice. I mean, I love Pride and Prejudice. I really do. But it's like, why won't people write retellings of other Jane Austen novels? You could do so much and get so creative. Like, they have Sensibility and Sea Monsters. I haven't read it, but the other Pride and Prejudice retelling I've read is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, that I don't have. I used to have it, but then I owned it, but then I, passed it along. I donated it, but that one was really fun, I remember. And there is a movie adaptations I have not watched yet, but I do want to watch at some point. But, like, so I just want them to explore, like, you could really expand on the stories from other characters in other Pride and Prejudice novels. I mean, other Jane Austen novels. That, it'll be so, like, Pride and Prejudice is great. It really is. Everyone loves it, but I just want to see people tackle more. Like, really try hard and get creative. But anyway, so that's kind of what's going on. I am reading, I did start, made some progress and started reading English Passengers by Matthew Neal. It is a very long book. It's one of those books with very long chapters. It's very slow. It's kind of slow going with the characters, like they're planning their voyage to Tanzania, where supposedly the Garden of Eden was. They're trying to find it. Our main characters are. So there's a lot of, aspects of the Bible and religion in the story so far. And it is really good. But, it's going kind of slow. Anyway, I am, I'm liking it. It's just... But it's really good. It's just very slow. Anyway, so that's how things are going. I want to read The Visitors as well this month. I don't know if I will or not, because like I said, English Passengers is kind of slow going. Anyway, if you are, just as I said before, if you're participating in Jane Austen July, I would love to know what you are currently reading. If you are, and even if you're not, I would love to know what you're currently reading as well, for July. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell notification button if you want to be notified about my latest videos. And I hope you're enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!